My list of must-dos on the Grand Old Manor here is diminishing. In fact, it's almost done. And I might even be able to take a break and work on cars once in a while when the shop is done. Pretty much the last big thing remaining is kind of right here behind me. Last time I put steps on the back porch, back whatever that room back there is. Here at the kitchen, there used to be a little platform and a set of stairs. Gone. Only thing I ever found of that was part of one of the railings. Everything else was gone, and it's just time for a replace. Let's take a quick look. We'll start with the big pile of debris that I had to clean up from underneath there. So over here, of course, having a clean workspace, pretty much got to have it. And it all needed to be cleaned out anyway. So up here, what we've got, this is the door, the back door, the door of the kitchen. And at one point in time, it had a little platform. In fact, you can see what used to be in the vinyl siding, you can see what used to be a railing for the backside came out, came across. And it took me a while to figure this out because there was just so much debris and leaves and junk down here. This is a landing for the steps. So we had on the side here steps that came up to right here, and then the little platform. Of course, there's the door to walk in, etc. And needless to say, it's all gone. The little door to the crawl space is gone. I'm gonna have to replace that. But we've got some rot here, and this is probably about half and half. It's probably water damage, and there's probably, this is definitely termites right here, but this is long since gone. My little board right here definitely rotted out. Underneath, I'm probably gonna have to replace this too. Underneath, I'm not too bad. I think that board right there is savable. I have to see when I get everything else off, kind of what the face of it looks like. But first thing I got to do is I got to tear all of this out. I'm gonna have to take some of the siding off to get to some of it. So time to go into destructo mode. Sometimes you got to start a journey with the first step. Step one, we've got 2, 3, 4, 5 lag bolts. I'm hoping they're lag bolts in the what used to be the toe board or ledger or whatever this thing is. And of course they're square head, and I don't have any square head sockets. So I got no choice but to get the wrench out. And who knows, I'm going to put on some gloves just to... All right. Well, that wrench almost fits. I have a sneaking suspicion that long before these things screw out, they're just gonna, they'll probably either rust through and snap. Well, hey, they are coming out. I'll be. That's a pretty good size lag screw. The more rotten it gets this way, the easier. That one came out pretty easy. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. There's not a whole lot left of the good chunk of that bolt. All right, let's see if this one will just come off. Okay, well, hang on. All right, what do we got going on here? We have, there we go, okay. Well, wasn't intended on taking that off yet, but it's off. Is that a wire? This is a vine that looks a lot like a wire. Kind of weird. Not sure what that is. Siding. This is definitely siding here. I'm definitely going to have to replace some of that. There's a nail. All right. That's what I needed to get in and look at. I got the vinyl siding off, at least the first layer, first row of vinyl siding off. I've got my first old piece of siding off. That's the bottom piece here. And now we're just pulling back until we find good wood. There's got to be good wood in here somewhere. There we go. Okay. Okay, well, all else fails, use a finishing nail. Okay. what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to go back and peel back this tar paper so I can see how deep the rot goes on my footer. All right, so I've got good wood on my footer. Looks good here, here. Where does it start? Looks like the rot starts about right here. Okay, this is a good sign. That's on this side. That's good wood. That's not. Okay, that's encouraging. So I can cut it back to about right here. Now let's see on the other side how far it goes. Okay, we're doing the same thing here. There's a piece of metal flashing here. Not sure what this is for, but it's gone now. I don't know what that was for. All right, same drill. Let's pull the tar paper back and see what we're looking at underneath here. Here's the question. How far does the rot go? Good. That's starting to feel soft there. Let me get a pen so I can mark this. This is the worst area of rot right around here. There's another section over here that I'll dig into too. I'm maybe a hair more than an inch and a half in. I'll have to measure it out and see. I'll just have to see how it looks. I mean, I inspected the back side of this beam, and it's good on the back side. It's just rotted on the front end. So let me see what it's going to take to kind of clean myself an area here and see if I can't maybe sister a replacement board up against the back side of this. Let me work on this for a while. I've got good wood right here. That's perfectly usable. Still working on this section a little bit. Right here on that 6-inch beam, I'm showing 4 3/4. So I'm already into good wood, and I'm not even deep enough for a sandwiched pressure treated 2x4 yet. So I've got one spot right here that might be kind of iffy. I think I'm okay over here. I got one little spot maybe. Other than that, I think my idea of sistering in a 2x4 to fill this back out, as long as I can cut out that pocket, I think that'll work. Let me work on this a little bit more, and we'll come back for an update. Okay, where am I at? Let's see. Off camera, I finished digging out the pocket for my sistered pressure treated 2x4. And I did have to do a little bit of gap filling back in here as well. Whoa, I got some sealant on that. All right, let me go wipe my hands off real quick. Well, I've got a putty knife around here somewhere. I just can't find it. Forgot all about that. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, that's all construction adhesive. So where was I at? Okay. So I did have to do a little bit of gap filling just for a little bit more rotten wood behind here. So I've got that covered, and that board secured. My replacement for the footer, the sistered board for the footer is in. I've got construction adhesive all the way around that thing. Should help seal it up, keep moisture out. And where am I at? So next up, what I need to do is I need to put in a header, across here. And then I forget what these aren't crippled studs. They're whatever they are. Up against here, down here, but I also need to measure it. Now I've got a 2x8 ledger board going flush against this, so it's going to drop down this far as well. And so I need to do a little bit of filling as well, but I need to get at least probably a doubled up 2x4 would work across here, come up, and then my whatever these cripple studs, I think is what they're called, along the sides here. The eagle-eyed among you might notice that there's probably a little bit of sag in this board. I'm not quite to the point where I can do anything about that yet. I'm trying to fix what's here to start with. I need to run into town to grab some Tapcons to put my whatever these things are, cripple studs in to the concrete block. Those aren't critical right now. I need to get some more sealant too so I can seal up the edges. But what I can do before I go into town is I can start getting my ledger board set up. Now, my measurement between my posts is 87.5 inches. With my 6x, that was on a 4x4. Wait a minute. Let me make sure I got my measurements right. No, 91 inches. That's what it is. Yeah, 91 inches. See, measure twice, cut 3 times. So I got 91 inches. Plus the extra 2 inches for the 6x versus the 4x. So I'm at 93. I've got a 96-inch ledger board. And I got to make sure I get it fairly well centered. And he says I got 3 inches. All right, so I got to be pretty. I got to be pretty exact on this. So I need to make sure I'm square coming off of this post, so I can set that board where it needs to go. And I got to think about how to do that. Well, I've come to the conclusion that I'm overthinking this, or maybe I'm not. However, I'm going to stick it up there, try it, then take some measurements, then figure it out. So I've got one end of my board propped up there. My screw is pre-drilled. I've got the corner marked, and I did account for the thickness of the deck board. That's why it drops down a little bit. So let's see if I can wrestle this thing up, get it in position without it falling. Get this side temporarily screwed in. I'll put the other side up. Level it, because like I said, I do have a little bit of a sag and a little bit of a settling or a slope down there. So at least my deck is going to be level. I'm probably about to find out just how out of level it really is. Okay, well, that's pretty good. And I did measure the crown goes up. I didn't forget that. Let's put this where I can get to it. Get my level up. Is there enough room in there for that? Can I see the level? Okay. All right, well, I'm off by just curious. Tape measure, tape measure, tape measure. There it is. About 1.5 inches over 8 feet. That's quite a bit. That's something for future Mark to deal with. Okay, ledger board is in place temporarily. So next, now I can figure out how to take my measurements out to my posts. And I think at this point, I'm probably going to need to set my posts in, get them square, and then I can start working on some real measurements. I think I'm going to do that next. One of the things I need to do in preparation for putting the columns up or the posts up is kind of fix these old footings. And rather than re-pour new footings, which doesn't make any sense. Now, when I go to expand this deck, I'll address these maybe at that time, but for now, they're fine. They were poured and sized originally for 4x4 posts. I'm going 6x. I'm still okay. I've still got plenty of concrete here, but it's just, I mean, the tops are uneven, they're rough. You can see the imprint of the 4x4 in it. So let's fix that. I went to the hardware store, got myself, never had one of these before, got myself a diamond bit grinder because everything I had didn't work very well on concrete. So let me clean some of this loose dirt and stuff out of here. I'm just going to level this off and make a nice kind of as flat a pad and surface as I can for the new hardware. Not bad. A little bit more here and here. Whoop. All right, it's got my hole drilled. Let's get my anchor in. Okay. Now, I need to do a little investigating and remember if I need to turn it this way or that way. But for now, I can still at least get my hardware set up. So here are my post bases. I've got my anchors, the holes drilled, driven into the footings. I've got my anchors aligned with each other lengthways. My 6x6 beam will fit in here. There is an alignment on these bases. If I put them this way, then my beam has more strength to resist rocking this way versus this way, which, since I'm going to have my joists tied into the ledger board, I'm not worried about rocking this way. I want this way. So I've got them aligned this way on purpose. I can go ahead and tighten these down. There we go. All right, that's good. I am going to have to cut that off, but that's okay. Let's get the other one. There we go. All right, we're good. Let me cut the tops of those bolts off, and we can start thinking about measuring and setting the posts. Got my posts cut to, it's a rough size. They're a little tall because these things are a little bit too expensive for measure once, cut twice. So I erred on the side of caution, but you notice that they are a little bit lower than the height of the ledger board. That will make sense here in a minute. Now it's time for a little grunting and groaning. Now these things are a little bit heavy. Okay. So first things first, let's center this up. My 6x6 here should be right at the height, the bottom of my ledger board, so that my joists go through on the ledger board and land on top of this beam. Now, let me go through, check level, and see if I can't secure these bottom posts. Perfect. Okay, I can get the rest of them in. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, they'll do the same thing to the other side, and the method to my madness hopefully soon will start to make sense. Morning, fellas and fellettes. In the process of rebuilding this platform, something just seemed off. Couldn't quite put my finger on it, but when I put the ledger board up temporarily, it really kind of showed up as, okay, what's going on? The ledger board over 8 feet has about 1.5 inches variance between the footer. And I'm scratching my head going, okay, I got my laser out, the ledger board is level, what's going on? This morning I came back out with a tape measure after scratching my head and reviewing some of the video footage from last night. I figured it out. Let's take a look. So here on this end of my ledger, I'm about 1.25 inches from the top of my footer. Here, I'm about 3.5. So I'm about 1.25 inches off over an 8-foot run of the header. So what's going on? I got my laser out and I checked this. This is level. I looked at my concrete block foundation along the blocks themselves. They're level. Then it dawned on me, all right, let's back up here just a little bit. So I came over here to right here. Here's my last concrete block. And then there was a concrete cap poured on top of the concrete blocks. And then my footer sits on top of that. Let's measure that. So I'm at essentially, for all intents and purposes, 5 inches. Over on this side, here's my last course of concrete block. There's my concrete cap. And that one is, for all intents and purposes, call it maybe 2.5. So what the heck? I've been fighting, trying to see what I've been doing wrong, that nothing seems to work level on this. Turns out it's not me. When they built this addition, we're guessing back in the 30s or 40s, they intentionally, they put the concrete block foundation level. And then on top of that, the concrete cap, they intentionally poured that with a slope going down to the corner of the building. You wouldn't see that in modern construction. They did this on purpose. It was done for a reason. Best I can figure is drainage. Who knows? If you guys know, put it down in the comments. It's definitely not something you see these days, but maybe that was a thing back then. Now that I know this, it's going to help me a bunch knowing that I'm not the goofball. So here's the plan. Don't have one. I've got butyl tape up against my repair behind the ledger board. There is a product out there that will space the ledger board out from the footer to allow water to drip back through. I can't get it. I can't find it anywhere. I'm thinking that I'm probably going to have enough gaps in there that as long as I'm good there, I don't think I'm going to trap any water down there long term. Time will tell. But I've pre-drilled my ledger board. I was going to put my joist hangers on beforehand. I'm going to wait on that until it's up against the wall, because that way I can take some final measurements before I, commit to committing. So let me get the ledger board up. I've got all my holes pre-drilled. Let me get my ledger board up on the wall there, and I'll come back. All right, tightening up the last of my bolts on the ledger board. Let's see. Okay, that's there. Because the ledger board is deeper or taller than my footer, and of course it rode lower in a footer, about half of the bolts were into wood, half of them were into the concrete block. So I've got a combination, whatever's appropriate for mounting the header. Considering the old one had 5 lag screws, this one ain't going anywhere. So it should be good here. I want to recheck all my measurements. Next up, we can start putting some joists on. After getting the end joist on, the joist hangers had me flummoxed for a minute because these, for some reason, don't have the little tabs you hammer in. And it's important to get the top of your joist level with the ledger board. And I'm trying to come up with a good way to do that. Finally, I figured out I just use a little kind of a scrap piece here, line everything up. Sure everything's good there. All right. Well, okay. Supposedly this is an easier way to do it. It's not turning out to be. Maybe that'll work. There we go. Okay. Okay. Now my joist hangers are in, except I need to put a couple of more nails on this one. All right. Now, let me grab the rest of my joist. We'll put those in there and secure them. All right, now this last one is an end nail or end screw. Let me check my crown. This one's kind of tough to see. I think it's going to go this way. All right. So this one's going to be end nailed or end screwed, just like so. All right, let me get that done. Make sure I'm level. That feels pretty darn good. I'm going to go through and secure all of my joists. Come back. The method to my madness here will make sense soon. Okay, guys, I promise this will all make sense soon. What I'm doing right now is I'm snapping a chalk line so I can put in, get down the bottom there. So I can put in my reinforcing cross plates. And that'll go right across the supporting beam. But I want to snap one more chalk line. Right here. Yeah, this is the one I promise will make sense shortly. So the idea of the big heavy beam across there is I'm going to cantilever out and get a little bit more platform, a little bit more deck space, kind of for free, if you want to call it that, instead of ending it right where it was before, right where the supports were, which basically all that was just a platform to stand on when you walked out the door. This way, I've got just a little bit more. Maybe it'll turn out to be useful. What I need to do now is I need to cut my joist down at my chalk line so that I've got a little bit more working room. All right, Now it's a little bit more workable. Plus, now I've got some boards that I can use to cut my braces with. I'm probably going to lose the last of my battery before I get this in, but this is the last of the cross braces. Obviously, the battery on my camera died. Turns out my other battery was dead too, so I had such a gorgeous day I couldn't stop. So I just kept working. I'll just fill you in on what I did. So got the last of my support braces in. I got the whatever this thing's called, the front thing in place, screwed in. I've got butyl tape across all the tops of the joists. That's just hopefully to prevent any water migration, anything like that. Might make it last a little bit longer. Next up, deck boards. So the deck boards are going to be 2x8s. I originally was going to do 2x6s, but when I went to look at the selection of 2x6s at the box store, just wasn't really impressed with them. They didn't have a whole lot, and they were all in pretty bad shape. The 2x8s looked a heck of a lot better. So guess what? It's getting 2x8s. There's a reason why I don't film outdoors very often. Trying to find a good camera spot so you guys can see what I'm doing. Man, what a pain in the butt. So let me go ahead and get the first board on. All I'm really doing here on these is looking for, it does kind of make a difference both on the crown and if the board's warped. And these boards, one of the reasons I liked them was they were actually pretty good, not too warped. So let's see, I need to spin this one around. Why is there a piece of metal stuck in that? Main thing on this, I'm thinking, and keep in mind, I have not got the faintest idea what I'm doing here. But I'm thinking that in order to set the first board, that's going to kind of determine the rest of them. I need to make sure it's square. Call it 59 1/4. 59 3/8. You bring that side out. No, take this side in. Wait a minute. No, take that side out. Here, recheck my measurements. Good. Okay. Right here in the center, I've got a little bit of a gap that it's a little bit wider than I'm really happy with. Unfortunately, I don't have one of those wood clamps that pushes instead of pulls. And I'm trying to think if I've got anything that would work. Let me try this. I'm going to see if I can pull this screw back out. Set my spacing as best I can. That's closer. Still not great. I'm just curious. Looks better on that side though. All right. I'm going to set it as close as I can. Go ahead and screw this board down in the center. Then I'll see if I can't just pull that side back out to get my spacing that way. Let's see if that works. Probably won't. And I got to figure out how to do that. Let me grab a screwdriver. Okay, good spacing. That works. Didn't think it would, but it did. Now, If I just screw that one screw back down, it's probably going to find the original hole. So let me get another screw in. That's better. That gap's a little wider than I like, but could be worse. That actually works. I'm going to set my spacing at the end, at the middle, screw the middle, and then at the other end. Is it probably the best way to do it? Doubt it. Is it the way I'm going to do it? Yep. Okay. Yeah, same thing. I think once I kind of get this pattern going, then it'll kind of take out that initial one board that was a little bit warped. Okay, I think you guys know the drill. I'm just going to put the rest of these boards on. Deck boards are on. I still have to trim the edges. A lot of finish work yet to do. Still got to build stairs, and I got to do railings. But that's for tomorrow, Mark, because today Mark is tired. That's going to do it for this week, guys. Temperatures dropped about 20 degrees in the last hour, hour and a half. We got a weather system coming through. Pretty much going to end my outdoor adventures for today. Maybe tomorrow. We'll see. I'll try and get a video out midweek if I can with the completion of the steps and the railings. If I can't, everybody have a Merry Christmas. If I can, everybody have a Merry Christmas. We'll see you guys soon. Everybody, have a great day.